I'm so glad you found your way here tonight. Your mind never really stops. Even now, in the quiet, it is running, replaying, imagining, and tonight, you'll discover why that restless, beautiful brain of yours creates the most vivid, layered, extraordinary dreams of anyone asleep right now. Welcome to Psychology for Sleep. Wherever you are right now, go ahead and settle in. Let the pillow hold you. Tonight, we'll explore 100 fascinating facts about the overthinking mind and the dream world it creates. From the brain network that never fully quiets, to the sleep science that explains why your most anxious nights become your most cinematic dreams, to the quiet truth that your vivid dreaming is not a flaw, but a gift. Let your eyes grow heavy as we begin. Notice how your mind wants to wander right now. Maybe towards something that happened today, or something coming tomorrow. That's all right. That wandering is the very thing we're going to explore tonight. Take one slow breath in, and as you let it go, let that thought dissolve. Not forever, just for now. You are safe. Your mind is remarkable, and soon it will carry you somewhere beautiful. The human brain contains roughly 86 billion neurons, and even when you lie down to sleep, nearly all of them remain active. Sleep is not the brain going dark. It is the brain shifting gears into a different, deeply productive mode of operation. Researchers using functional MRI technology have tracked this transition and found that during the quiet between wakefulness and sleep, certain brain networks actually become more active, not less. For the overthinker, this transition is rarely clean. The mind continues to process, evaluate, and narrate long after the lights go out. There is a specific system in the brain that is most active when you are not focused on a task. When you are daydreaming, replaying memories, or imagining the future. Neuroscientists call it the default mode network. Discovered by neurologist Marcus Reichel in the early 2000s, the default mode network spans several key regions, including the medial prefrontal cortex, the posterior cingulate cortex, and the angular gyrus, a collection of interconnected regions that together create what researchers describe as your brain's internal narrative. It is the voice of your inner world. The default mode network is most strongly associated with self-referential thinking, thoughts about yourself, your relationships, your past, and your imagined future. When you lie awake, wondering what someone meant by that comment, or rehearsing a conversation that hasn't happened yet, the default mode network is at the center of that process. It is the architecture of overthinking, and for people who are naturally introspective, emotionally sensitive, or creatively wired, this network tends to be more active, more persistently engaged, and more richly connected than in those who think less deeply. Research published in April 2025 in the journal Biology reviewed 2 decades of default mode network studies and confirmed that individuals with higher levels of introspection and self-reflection consistently show stronger default mode network connectivity. The medial prefrontal cortex, one of the network's anchoring nodes, is specifically tied to the kind of meaning-making thinking that overthinkers do, constantly asking why, imagining how things could have gone differently, caring about what others think and feel. This kind of thinking is not a disorder. It is an orientation toward depth. During REM sleep, the stage of sleep most associated with vivid dreaming, the default mode network remains highly engaged. Studies using functional imaging have shown that the medial prefrontal cortex and posterior cingulate cortex, both key nodes of the default mode network, show elevated blood flow during REM periods. For overthinkers whose default mode network is already running at a higher baseline, this means the dream world draws on a richer, more intensely activated internal landscape than it does for less ruminative sleepers. Dreaming occurs primarily during REM sleep, though lighter dreams can emerge during other stages. REM is characterized by rapid eye movements, a near-complete relaxation of the body's muscles, and a brain showing electrical activity remarkably similar to that of wakefulness. The brain during REM is not resting. It is running a simulation, a deeply immersive internal experience woven from memory, emotion, and imagination. For the overthinking mind, this simulation tends to be especially elaborate. A landmark study tracking neural correlates of dream recall found that individuals who remember their dreams most frequently show higher regional cerebral blood flow in the temporoparietal junction during sleep, the same region involved in self-awareness and perspective-taking. Overthinkers, who naturally exercise this region more often during waking hours, appear to have a structural advantage in dream recall. The vivid dreams are not just happening more intensely, they are being remembered more clearly, creating the impression that the overthinking mind simply dreams more. The emotional tone of dreams is regulated in part by the amygdala, the brain's threat detection center. During REM sleep, the amygdala becomes one of the most metabolically active structures in the brain. For people who carry elevated background anxiety, the kind of low-level hum of worry that overthinkers know well, the amygdala enters REM sleep already primed. The result is dreams that carry a stronger emotional charge, more vivid, more textured, sometimes more distressing, and more deeply memorable upon waking. Research published in the journal Sleep in 2024 described what researchers call the negative effect induced and threat cognitive arousal processing model. The key finding: when a person engages in worry and rumination before sleep, this cognitive arousal imbues dream content with negative emotional material. The brain essentially carries the unresolved emotional residue of the waking hours into the dream state. The overthinker who goes to bed with a mind still churning is quite literally writing the script of their dreams before they close their eyes. This connection between pre-sleep rumination and dream intensity is not simply a matter of mood. Neuroimaging studies have confirmed that the prefrontal cortex, the brain's rational regulator, partially withdraws its oversight during REM sleep. Without the prefrontal cortex fully modulating the amygdala's activity, emotions in dreams run unchecked. Scenarios that the waking mind would gently redirect become vivid narratives. For the overthinker, who rarely applies a light touch to their own feelings, this can produce dreams of startling emotional depth. The brain's hippocampus plays a central role in constructing dreams. This seahorse-shaped structure, nestled deep within the temporal lobe, is responsible for memory consolidation, the process of transferring experiences from short-term holding into long-term storage. During REM sleep, the hippocampus replays and reorganizes the day's emotional memories, weaving them into dream narratives. For overthinkers who have spent the day running experiences through analysis and emotional interpretation, the hippocampus has an especially rich collection of material to work with. There is a hypothesis in dream science, sometimes called the continuity hypothesis, which proposes that dream content tends to reflect the concerns and preoccupations of waking life. Studies testing this hypothesis have found strong support. People who worry about relationships dream about relationships. People anxious about performance dream about failure or judgment. People processing grief often encounter the lost person in their dreams. The overthinking mind, with its deep catalogue of unresolved worries and vivid imaginings, naturally generates dream content that feels more narrative, more charged, and more personally meaningful. Vivid dreaming is not the same as poor sleep. Many people assume that remembering dreams vividly or having emotionally intense dreams means they are not sleeping deeply. But research clarifies this misunderstanding. Dream recall and dream vividness reflect heightened activity in specific brain regions during REM, not disrupted sleep architecture. An overthinker who wakes remembering layered, story-rich dreams has not necessarily slept poorly. Their brain simply operated at a higher narrative intensity during the night. REM, sleep itself, is one of the most restorative phases of the sleep cycle. During REM, the brain processes emotionally loaded memories and strips away some of their stress charge, a process that sleep researcher Matthew Walker at the University of California has described as overnight therapy. The very dreams that feel chaotic or distressing are, at a neurological level, part of the brain's attempt to digest and diffuse emotional weight. The overthinker's vivid, turbulent dreams may be doing more healing work than they appear to from the outside. The relationship between imagination and dreaming has fascinated researchers for decades. In 2025, researchers at Northwestern University published findings showing that using targeted sounds during REM sleep to direct dream content towards specific unsolved problems reliably increased dreaming about those problems. And, in participants who dreamed about them, boosted later problem solving. This is among the most direct evidence yet that dreaming is not passive. It is the brain's creative workshop, running in parallel with rest. The overthinker, whose mind is perpetually generating new problems to chew on, may benefit from this workshop more than they realize. Not all vivid dreams are distressing. Research on dream phenomenology, the study of what dreams actually feel like, finds that overthinkers and highly sensitive individuals also report a greater frequency of emotionally positive dreams, dreams of connection, wonder, discovery, and beauty. The same neural richness that amplifies anxious dream content also amplifies joyful and awe-inspiring dream material. The default mode network, in its nighttime mode, is not only a factory of worry, it is a theater of the full range of human feeling. Lucid dreaming, the experience of becoming aware within a dream that one is dreaming, is more common among people with strong metacognitive abilities. Metacognition is the capacity to think about your own thinking, to observe your mental processes from a slight internal distance. Overthinkers engage in metacognition almost constantly during waking hours. Neuroscience research has linked lucid dreaming to heightened activity in the prefrontal cortex during REM. the same region that drives metacognitive awareness. The overthinking brain may be, in this sense, already wired for the most extraordinary dream experiences available to the sleeping mind. The default mode network does not operate in isolation. It constantly interacts with two other major brain systems: the salience network, which flags what matters emotionally and personally, and the executive control network, which manages attention and decision-making. In well-functioning brains, these networks take turns, but in people prone to overthinking, the default mode network and salience network can remain co-activated, both running at the same time, processing meaning and emotional significance simultaneously. This produces the characteristic experience of thoughts that feel both personally urgent and difficult to redirect. During early childhood, the default mode network is not yet fully developed. It matures gradually through adolescence and into early adulthood, becoming more strongly integrated as a person accumulates more experience, memory, and self-reflection. This developmental arc helps explain why children typically dream less elaborately than adults, and why adults who have lived through significant emotional experiences, loss, love, change, tend to have richer, more layered dreamscapes. The depth of your dream life reflects, in part, the depth of your lived experience. Norepinephrine, a neurotransmitter associated with alertness and stress response, virtually disappears from the brain during REM sleep. Researchers believe this chemical withdrawal is one of the reasons REM sleep serves an emotional processing function without the constant activation of the stress system. The brain can revisit difficult memories in a chemically different state, recontextualizing them with less of the original emotional sharpness. For overthinkers whose waking hours are often flooded with norepinephrine, REM sleep offers a rare biochemical reprieve, a window where the mind can process without the physical signatures of anxiety. Acetylcholine, by contrast, peaks during REM sleep. This neurotransmitter supports memory encoding, rapid neural connectivity, and the fluid association of ideas across distant memory networks. High acetylcholine is one reason why dream narratives often feel seamlessly logical within the dream itself, even when they would strike the waking mind as absurd. It is also why dreams so frequently make unexpected connections, pairing images and memories that the waking mind would never consciously link. The overthinker, whose associations are already unusually wide and creative, finds these neurochemical conditions produce particularly inventive dream architecture. Dreams have long been connected to creative breakthroughs. Many well-documented historical accounts describe writers, scientists, and musicians receiving insights during sleep, solutions to problems, musical phrases, lines of poetry. While the anecdotal record is rich, recent experimental work has brought more rigor to this phenomenon. A 2024 study in Clinical and Translational Neuroscience proposed a computational model in which REM dreaming functions somewhat like a generative adversarial network. The dreaming brain, both producing and evaluating its own simulations, a process that appears to help new semantic representations emerge in the cortex. For the overthinker who struggles with problems that seem unsolvable while awake, the dreaming mind may quietly be working on them. Emotional memory consolidation during REM sleep is not just about reducing distress. Research has found that REM sleep specifically strengthens emotionally significant memories, while allowing the emotional tone of those memories to mellow over time. This means that experiences which feel raw and overwhelming immediately after they occur will tend to feel somewhat softer after 1 or 2 nights of good sleep. The overthinker who lies awake reliving an argument or a humiliation and wakes the next morning, finding it somehow slightly less sharp, has experienced this process directly. Sleep is not forgetting. It is perspective. The brain during sleep is not evenly distributed in its activity. Certain regions remain highly active: the hippocampus, the amygdala, the default mode network, while others dial back. The dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, one of the brain's primary rational override centers, reduces its activity sharply during both REM and deep sleep. This is why dreams do not feel strange while you are in them. The part of the brain best positioned to say this makes no sense has stepped back. For the overthinker who spends their waking hours in constant dialogue with that rational center, the drop in its authority during sleep allows the deeper, more emotional and imaginative parts of the mind to run freely. Sleep architecture. The pattern of sleep stages through the night is not uniform. REM periods grow longer and more frequent toward morning. The first REM period of the night may last only 10 minutes, while the final REM period before waking can stretch for 30 minutes or more. This is why the most vivid, most narrative dreams tend to occur in the hour or two before natural waking. The brain is in its longest, most emotionally active REM window. Overthinkers who have been awake for hours in the middle of the night and then fall back into sleep near morning may find themselves descending into their most intense dreamscapes precisely when they had hoped to rest. Take a moment now to notice your body, not to fix anything, just to notice. Feel the places where you are resting against something solid: the mattress beneath you, the pillow behind your head, your spine. Supported, releasing. Your mind has been learning tonight about the default network, the one inside you that never fully rests. But notice, even as that network hums, your body is already slowing. Your breath is already deeper than when we began. Your hands are heavier. You don't need to quiet your mind. You only need to let your body go further into rest. Just breathe and let your body lead the way. The experience of falling asleep is called sleep onset. And for overthinkers, it is frequently one of the most difficult transitions of the day. Research on sleep onset latency, the time between lying down and actually falling asleep, consistently finds that people who score high on rumination measures take longer to fall asleep. The reason is, neurological rumination activates the default mode network, keeps the salience network engaged, and suppresses the transition into the slower theta brainwave states associated with early sleep. The mind that cannot let go of the day is quite literally maintaining a brain state incompatible with sleep. Theta brainwaves are the bridge between wakefulness and sleep. Operating at a frequency between 4 and 8 cycles per second, theta waves emerge during the drowsy, hypnagogic state just before sleep onset. That twilight zone where thoughts become strange and fluid, where images appear unbidden, where the boundary between the interior world and the external world begins to blur. For overthinkers who spend much of their waking life in a state of internal absorption, this theta state can feel oddly familiar, a natural doorway that, once recognized, may be easier to pass through. Hypnagogic hallucination, the vivid images, sounds, or sensations that sometimes appear just as you are falling asleep, are more commonly reported by people who engage in high levels of creative and imaginative thinking. These experiences are not signs of anything pathological. They are the mind's transition artifacts, the visual and sensory echoes of a brain shifting from active processing into the early stages of sleep. The overthinker, whose default state is one of rich internal imagery, may experience hypnagogic hallucinations with unusual frequency and vividness. The phenomenon of sleep-related rumination has been studied extensively in recent years. A 2024 paper published in Psychologia Reflexão e Critica confirmed that ruminative thinking significantly mediates the relationship between stress and sleep quality, meaning that it is not stress alone that disrupts sleep, but the specific pattern of repetitive, self-referential thinking that overthinking generates. Addressing sleep problems in overthinkers, therefore, may require working with the thinking patterns themselves, not simply with sleep hygiene behaviors. The mind needs a different kind of permission to rest. One of the most counterintuitive findings in sleep science is that trying harder to fall asleep often makes sleep less likely. Researchers call this sleep effort, the effortful monitoring of one's own sleep state. Combined with anxiety about the consequences of not sleeping, overthinkers are especially prone to sleep effort, because the same attentional habits that keep them scanning their environment for problems are turned inward onto sleep itself. The mind begins to analyze whether it is relaxed enough, whether sleep is coming, whether waking tomorrow will be manageable, and in doing so, remains alert. The first thing the brain consolidates during sleep is not information, but emotion. Before the hippocampus begins organizing factual memories, the limbic system, the emotional core of the brain, begins processing the affective events of the day. This is why sleep deprivation tends to affect emotional stability before it affects memory or cognition. For the overthinker who has been managing a heavy emotional load throughout the day, this emotional consolidation during early sleep is particularly important and particularly vulnerable to disruption if sleep is delayed. Chronic sleep disruption in people prone to rumination creates a cycle that can become self-reinforcing. Poor sleep increases emotional reactivity the following day. Increased emotional reactivity generates more material for rumination. More rumination delays sleep onset the following night. Research published in 2024 tracking this cycle confirmed that the relationship between ruminative thinking and sleep quality operates bidirectionally. Each worsens the other over time. Breaking this cycle requires intervention at both points, the quality of rest and the quality of the day's emotional processing. Paradoxical intention is a technique drawn from cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia that asks the person to remain awake rather than trying to sleep. The aim is to dissolve the performance anxiety around sleep, removing the very pressure that keeps overthinkers awake. Studies on paradoxical intention have found moderate success, particularly in people whose sleep problems are driven by anxiety about sleeplessness rather than by physical insomnia. For the overthinker, the instruction to simply lie still and rest without demanding sleep, can reduce the cognitive hyperarousal that prevents natural sleep onset. The emotional themes that appear most frequently in the dreams of overthinkers tend to mirror their waking preoccupations. But with distortion, a concern about a relationship may appear in the dream as being lost or unable to communicate. A worry about competence may manifest as showing up to an exam unprepared. Dream researchers have long noted these symbolic transformations, not because the unconscious is encoding hidden messages, but because the brain during REM uses metaphor and narrative to represent emotional states. The dream version of a worry is the mind trying to process it in a different register. People with high trait anxiety, the stable tendency toward worry across many situations, show a distinct pattern of dream content compared to those with lower anxiety. They report more social threat scenarios, more dreams involving confrontation or loss, and more frequent dreams with unresolved endings. The unresolved ending, in particular, appears to be a marker of incomplete emotional processing. Researchers believe that when the emotional consolidation work of REM sleep is insufficient, perhaps because anxiety kept the sleeper from reaching deep, restorative REM, the dream ends without resolution, leaving an emotional residue that carries into the next waking day. Not all overthinking is created equal. Researchers distinguish between two types of repetitive thinking: rumination, which is passive, backward-looking, and often focused on what went wrong, and worry, which is forward-looking and focused on what might go wrong. Both activate the default mode network and both disrupt sleep, but they do so through slightly different mechanisms. Rumination tends to increase the emotional load of dream content by replaying unprocessed past events. Worry tends to keep the brain in a state of low-level alertness that resists the relaxation needed for sleep onset. Creative individuals have long been noted to have unusually active and memorable dream lives. Studies examining the relationship between creativity and dream recall find a consistent positive correlation. The more divergent and generative someone's thinking style, the more likely they are to recall vivid and emotionally rich dreams. The cognitive overlap between creative thinking and overthinking is substantial. Both involve fluid association, strong internal imagery, and a tendency to continue processing when others have stopped. The creative overthinker's dream life is, in a real sense, an extension of their creative life into the sleeping hours. The posterior cingulate cortex, one of the central nodes of the default mode network, is associated with autobiographical memory retrieval and self-reflection. It is most active when a person is recalling personal memories or imagining their own future. During dreaming, this region remains engaged, suggesting that dreams are not random. They draw heavily on autobiographical material, the overthinker's personal history, which has been carefully catalogued and frequently revisited during waking hours, becomes the primary source material for the night's dreamscapes. Some researchers have proposed that vivid dreaming serves a social simulation function, that the brain uses the dreaming state to rehearse social scenarios, model other people's behavior, and refine emotional responses. This theory aligns with the observation that the most common dream content across cultures involves other people conversations, conflicts, reunions, separations. For the overthinker who spends their waking hours modeling the inner lives of others and anticipating social dynamics, The social simulation theory of dreaming suggests that their nightly dream theater is performing an especially sophisticated version of this rehearsal. Memory reactivation during sleep is not passive. Research on targeted memory reactivation, the technique of playing sounds during sleep that are associated with specific waking experiences, has shown that the sleeping brain actively selects and replays memories when given the right cues. The overthinker who falls asleep with a particular concern or question circulating in their mind may be, in a very real sense, directing the nocturnal processing of that concern. The act of setting down a worry before sleep, of consciously releasing it into the night, may work partly by allowing the brain to process it without the interference of anxious waking cognition. You're still here, drifting between thought and rest. That means something. Psychology. For sleep exists because minds like yours deserve a place to land at night. A place that takes what you feel seriously and helps you carry it gently into sleep. If this is helping, a quiet subscribe means another wandering mind might find their way here too. Now let go again, and let's continue. The default mode network is not a single structure but a network, a set of brain regions that reliably activate together, connected by long white matter fiber tracts that allow rapid communication across distances. The strength of these connections varies between individuals and has been linked to differences in personality, creativity, and susceptibility to mental health difficulties in people high in openness to experience. A personality trait strongly correlated with both creativity and overthinking. The default mode network tends to show stronger internal connectivity. Dreams during the first half of the night are more likely to incorporate recent memories. The events of the previous day or two. Dreams during the second half of the night are more likely to blend recent and older memories, making unusual connections across distant time periods. This is why late night or early morning dreams so often feel both strangely personal and oddly remote. They are pulling from across the whole span of a life. For the overthinker, whose memory for emotionally significant events reaches back with unusual clarity, these later dreams can carry material from years or decades ago, arriving with the freshness of something just experienced. The brain's threat simulation hypothesis of dreaming proposes that one function of dreams is to rehearse responses to challenging situations, not to cause distress, but to build a kind of emotional preparedness. Under this framework, the anxiety-laden dreams of overthinkers serve a functional purpose. They are the brain running drills, rehearsing the navigation of difficult terrain so that the waking self is slightly better equipped to handle similar emotional challenges when they arise. The nightmare is, in this sense, a form of training. Research on nightmare frequency finds that stress-related nightmares are near universal in humans during periods of high life strain. Job loss, relationship difficulty, illness, grief, uncertainty. The universality of this experience suggests that stress-induced, vivid and distressing dreaming is a normal, adaptive response, not a sign of dysfunction. The overthinker who experiences intense dreams during difficult periods is doing exactly what the human brain is designed to do, using the nighttime to metabolize the day's emotional material. There is growing evidence that the quality of emotional processing during REM sleep is more important than its quantity. Short but deeply restful REM periods appear to perform more emotional work than longer but fragmented ones. This has implications for overthinkers who may experience REM sleep that is technically sufficient in duration but repeatedly interrupted by arousal. Working toward uninterrupted sleep, even if it means shorter, total time in bed, may produce better emotional outcomes than longer periods of fragmented rest. During wakefulness, the brain's resting state is not truly resting. Neuroimaging studies have consistently shown that the brain at wakeful rest, sitting quietly, staring at nothing, consumes only slightly less energy than the brain engaged in an active cognitive task. Marcus Reichler's original discovery of the default mode network came from noticing this paradox. The brain at rest was nearly as active as the brain at work. For the overthinker, wakeful rest barely exists as a category. The internal narrative never truly pauses. Even when external demands drop away, the default mode network is also associated with moral reasoning and the evaluation of social norms. People who score high on measures of empathy and moral concern show stronger default mode network engagement when considering ethical dilemmas. The overthinker who lies awake, wondering whether they said the right thing, whether they treated someone fairly, or whether they could have handled a situation differently, is engaging the moral reasoning function of the default mode network just as readily as its memory replay function. The sleepless conscience is a default mode network, running its ethical subroutines. Dream emotion does not always match dream content in the way one might expect. It is common to feel profound sadness in a dream that appears, by its surface events, to be entirely ordinary. A routine dream about a supermarket or a childhood classroom. Conversely, dreams involving frightening imagery may not feel frightening at all while they are occurring. This dissociation between content and emotion reflects the limbic system's independent processing during REM. The feeling in the dream is not caused by the events of the dream. Both are produced simultaneously by the sleeping brain's emotional state. Overthinkers often report a specific form of dream experience, sometimes called meta-dreaming, in which the dreamer, within the dream, is aware that they are processing something, attempting to solve a problem, or trying to understand a situation. This experience reflects the partial engagement of metacognitive capacities during REM sleep. The overthinker's habit of monitoring their own mental processes persists even into the dream state, creating dreams that feel unusually purposeful, as though the sleeping mind knows it is working on something. The relationship between intelligence and dream complexity is not straightforward, but several studies have found that verbal intelligence and abstract reasoning ability are positively correlated with dream narrative complexity. People who tend to think in detailed, structured ways produce dreams with more elaborate plots, more characters, and more emotionally nuanced relationships. The overthinking mind's characteristic habits, its attention to detail, its tendency to construct narratives around events, its careful attention to the motivations of others, appear to carry directly into the architecture of the dream world. Take a breath in and imagine that the boundaries of your body are very gently expanding outward, not in any strange way, simply the sense of taking up a little more space, releasing a little more tension at the edges. Your thoughts may still be moving, but they are moving more slowly. Notice the rhythm of your breath. Notice how it continues without your effort. This is your body's oldest intelligence, working quietly on your behalf. Rest into that. The sleeping brain is not disconnected from the world. It continues to process sensory information from the environment, though at a reduced level. Sounds, light changes, and temperature shifts can all influence the content of dreams. This is why sleeping in a cooler room tends to produce slightly different dream tones than sleeping in a warm one, and why a familiar voice, speaking quietly nearby, may appear in a dream as the voice of someone else entirely. The dreaming brain is translating reality, not escaping it. Emotional residue from the day, the lingering tension of an unresolved conversation, the low-level unease of an uncertain situation, can survive in the body as well as the mind. The autonomic nervous system's stress response, once activated, takes time to down-regulate even after the triggering situation has passed. For overthinkers who have been in a state of low-level physiological activation throughout the day, the body carries that tension into bed. The nervous system, settling towards sleep, must work through both the mental and the physical dimensions of the day's emotional load. Sleep science distinguishes between dream reports collected immediately upon waking, which tend to be vivid and detailed, and those collected even 30 minutes later, when memory consolidation for the dream experience has partially degraded. The overthinker, whose memory is both stronger and more emotionally indexed than average, may retain dream experiences with unusual fidelity. This creates the lived experience of a richer, more continuous inner life across the threshold between sleep and waking. The sense that the night carries something that can be brought back. People who practice regular mindfulness show changes in both their waking default mode network activity and their dream experiences. Several studies have found that mindfulness training reduces the tendency of the default mode network to generate repetitive, self-critical thoughts during wakefulness. Over time, these changes appear to carry into sleep. Practitioners report fewer anxiety-laden dream sequences and a greater proportion of neutral or positive dream content. The overthinker, who learns to hold their thoughts more lightly during the day, gradually trains the default mode network to generate a different quality of nocturnal story. The brain's orbitofrontal cortex, a region involved in emotional value and reward assessment, shows partial activity during REM dreaming. This is one reason why dream experiences can feel so deeply meaningful. The brain's valuation system is online, assigning emotional significance to the dreamscape's events and images. For the overthinker, who is already oriented toward finding meaning in experience, the orbitofrontal cortex's activity during dreaming can produce dream experiences that feel almost unbearably personal, as though the sleeping mind has touched something true. The social brain hypothesis of human evolution proposes that the extraordinary size of the human prefrontal cortex, relative to other species, developed in response to the demands of complex social living, the need to track relationships, model intentions, manage reputation, and navigate group dynamics. If this hypothesis is correct, then the overthinking human brain, with its constant modeling of social situations, is operating one of the most recently evolved and metabolically costly cognitive systems on the planet. The worried mind, in this light, is not an aberration. It is an apex expression of what human cognition was built to do. During sleep, the brain's glymphatic system becomes significantly more active than during wakefulness. This fluid clearance system, most robustly demonstrated in animal studies, with emerging evidence in humans, moves cerebrospinal fluid through channels in the brain, washing out metabolic waste products that accumulate during active neural processing. The overthinker who sleeps well is not just resting their mind. They may be facilitating the physical cleaning of a brain that has worked exceptionally hard. Sleep, for the high-activity mind, is maintenance as much as rest. Dreams involving flying, falling, or being pursued are among the most universally reported across cultures. While the specific imagery varies with cultural context, the emotional themes of freedom, vulnerability, and being followed appear with striking consistency in human dream reports from across the globe. These shared dream themes may reflect the deep evolutionary history of the emotions they represent: the felt sense of unbounded movement, the sudden loss of support, the awareness of pursuit, experiences that would have been intensely relevant to the survival of our ancestors and that the dreaming brain returns to across generations. Recurring dreams. Dreams that share a specific scenario or setting and return periodically over weeks, months, or years are common among people who experience persistent stress. Research on recurring dream content finds that these dreams typically diminish and eventually cease once the underlying life situation that generated them is resolved or integrated. The recurring dream is not the brain making the same mistake twice. It is the brain returning to incomplete emotional processing, attempting again and again to find resolution. For the overthinker who returns in dreams to the same school, the same house, the same moment of failure, the brain is still working on it. Sleep stage transitions. The moments when the brain shifts between NREM stages or moves into REM are often associated with brief moments of semi-wakefulness that most people do not remember. For light sleepers and overthinkers, these transitions can feel like full waking episodes, contributing to the sense of having slept badly, even when total sleep time was adequate. Sleep tracking studies, comparing subjective and objective sleep measures, consistently find that overthinkers underestimate the amount of sleep they actually got, because the brief transition moments are experienced and remembered as full awakenings. The precuneus, a region located toward the back and top of the brain, is one of the most consistently activated areas during dreaming, particularly during the visual and narrative phases of REM. The precuneus is associated with mental imagery, episodic memory, and self-projection, the ability to imagine yourself in different times and places. In overthinkers, this region is frequently exercised during waking hours through imaginative rehearsal of future scenarios and vivid recollection of past ones. The dreaming overthinker's precuneus is drawing on years of active training. Research on the relationship between personality traits and dream content has found that people who score high on the personality dimension of neuroticism, which includes emotional reactivity, anxiety, and a tendency toward negative emotional experiences, dream more frequently and with greater emotional intensity than those who score low. Importantly, this relationship does not mean that more emotionally reactive people sleep worse. It means they generate richer emotional material during sleep. The emotional sensitivity that makes waking life more turbulent for some people also makes their dream life more vivid. Some researchers have proposed that the emotional intensity of dreams serves a calibration function. The dreaming brain is not just processing existing emotions, but also calibrating the sensitivity of the emotional system for the following day. Under this framework, the emotionally rich dreams of the overthinker may be doing important work in maintaining or gently adjusting the emotional thermostat of the waking mind. A night of vivid emotional dreaming may precede a day of slightly greater emotional clarity, not in spite of the intensity of the night, but because of it. The concept of dream incubation, deliberately directing dream content by focusing on a specific question or concern before sleep, has a long history in both spiritual and scientific traditions. Modern experiments have supported a version of this phenomenon. Focusing on a problem before sleep increases the probability of dreaming about it. For the overthinker who always carries questions into bed, this may mean that the act of gently formulating a single question, rather than spinning through many, could allow the dreaming mind to engage more efficiently, producing the clarity that anxious rumination alone cannot reach. The temporal lobe, which runs along the sides of the brain above the ears, is deeply involved in the construction of narrative and meaning. During dreaming, temporal lobe activity supports the story-like quality of dream experience, the sense that events are unfolding in a coherent sequence, that characters have histories and motivations, that the dream is going somewhere. For the overthinker, whose internal world is already rich with narrative, who tells themselves stories about the people in their life and the situations they are navigating, the temporal lobe's contribution to dreaming builds an especially elaborate theater. A 2023 study, published in the Journal of Neuroscience, found that time spent in REM sleep specifically enhances the capacity for memory abstraction, the ability to extract general patterns and principles from specific experiences. This function is distinct from simple memory replay and may be one of the key reasons that insight and creative problem-solving tend to improve after sleep. For the overthinker, who turns specific events over and over, looking for their deeper meaning, REM sleep's abstraction function offers a parallel process. The sleeping brain, finding the pattern that the waking mind, caught in the details, could not quite reach. The emotional content of dreams appears to be subject to a mild positive bias under conditions of good sleep. Research tracking dream affect has found that when sleep architecture is undisturbed, dream experiences shift somewhat toward the neutral and positive over the course of the night, particularly in the later REM periods. This suggests that deep, uninterrupted sleep gently tilts the emotional quality of the dream experience in a more restorative direction. For the overthinker, who often wakes from distressing dreams, building toward better sleep continuity may gradually shift the emotional landscape of the night. Narrative therapy and cognitive processing therapy, clinical approaches used for anxiety, trauma, and depression, both involve helping clients construct new stories about their experiences. Sleep researchers have noted a functional parallel. REM dreaming appears to do a version of this same work spontaneously, recombining emotional memories in new narrative configurations. For the overthinker who privately rewrites the stories of their experiences, who turns events over looking for the version that makes sense, that feels fair, that resolves, the dreaming brain is a collaborator in the same project. The sleep spindles that appear on EEG recordings during NREM stage 2 sleep, brief bursts of neural oscillation at 11 to 15 cycles per second, have been linked to memory consolidation and the processing of emotional material from the previous day. People who show more sleep spindle activity tend to wake with a better mood and a clearer ability to regulate emotions. For overthinkers who struggle to shift between emotional states during the day, sleep spindle-rich NREM sleep may be one of the night's most quietly beneficial experiences, smoothing out emotional variability in ways the waking mind cannot easily achieve. The sense of time in dreams is profoundly distorted. Dreams that feel like hours of narrative can occur within minutes of actual elapsed time. The subjective expansion of time in the dream state has been linked to the brain's altered processing of memory encoding. Without the normal time-stamping functions of the waking brain, dream experiences are not placed in sequence the way waking experiences are. For the overthinker who feels that their waking hours are too short and their nights too long, the dream state offers a curious inversion, a space where the inner experience expands freely beyond its temporal container. The body, during REM sleep, is in a state of temporary paralysis, maintained by a mechanism called REM atonia. This suppression of voluntary motor output, managed by specific brainstem circuits, prevents the dreaming body from physically enacting the movements of the dream. Sleep paralysis. The briefly terrifying experience of waking while REM atonia is still active occurs when consciousness returns before the body's motor release. The experience is alarming but harmless, and it is more common in people who experience fragmented sleep, including, again, overthinkers whose sleep architecture is more easily disrupted. Across all known human cultures, dreaming is treated as meaningful. Anthropologists studying dream practices in diverse societies find that the universal human behavior of narrating and interpreting dreams suggests a deep cognitive and social function for dream experience. Whatever the ultimate biological purpose of dreaming, humans reliably treat dream experiences as carrying information about their inner life, about the people around them, about what they are afraid of and what they hope for. The overthinker who wakes from a dream and immediately begins to analyze it is continuing a practice as old as human consciousness itself. The experience of waking from a dream and feeling that it meant something, even if the meaning cannot be articulated, reflects the emotional tagging that occurs during REM processing. The limbic system marks certain dream experiences as meaningful without specifying why. This emotional resonance without explicit content is one of the most distinctively human dream experiences, and it is reported more frequently by people with strong emotional sensitivity. For the overthinker, this experience, waking with the sense that the night has left them something important, is not an illusion. The brain does mark things as meaningful, whether that significance is constructed or discovered. It is real in its effects. Some neuroscientists have proposed that the default mode network is the neural basis of what psychologists call the narrative self, the continuous story the mind tells about who it is, where it came from, and where it is going. Under this view, the self is not a fixed entity stored somewhere in the brain, but an ongoing process of narrative construction, maintained by the default mode network's continuous activity. For the overthinker, this narrative self is particularly richly maintained. Its stories more detailed, its character more carefully rendered, its continuity more vigilantly protected. the vivid dreams of the overthinker may be, in part, a continuation of that narration. The phenomenon of dream amnesia, the rapid forgetting of dreams upon waking, is thought to involve the same mechanisms that prevent memories from being encoded during certain phases of sleep. But not everyone forgets equally. Individuals with higher activity in the temporoparietal junction and those who wake more frequently during the night retain more dream memories. For the overthinker who wakes several times and recalls elaborate fragments from each awakening, this creates a cumulative record of the night's inner life that feels richer and more continuous than most people experience. The dream life of the overthinker is, in a literal sense, better documented. Your mind has traveled a long way tonight. It has learned that it is not broken. It is simply built differently, built deeper, built for the interior life. And now, let that knowledge rest. Let it settle like dust, slowly falling in still air. You don't need to do anything with what you've learned. You don't need to understand yourself better right now. You only need to rest. Breathe in slowly, and breathe out all the effort of trying to figure anything out. Your mind will keep learning while you sleep. You don't need to supervise it. Just rest. Just rest. People who sleep well after a period of learning retain more of what they learned than those who stay awake. This benefit of sleep on memory consolidation is one of the most robust findings in sleep science, replicated across hundreds of studies in children and adults. For the overthinker who processes, experiences deeply and thoroughly, sleep's consolidation function means that the insights gained through reflection are more durably encoded after a good night of rest. The thinking done during the day is not wasted. It is preserved and deepened by sleep. The brain's reward system is subtly active during positive dreaming. Dopaminergic circuits associated with pleasure and motivation show mild engagement during REM periods involving positive emotional content. This is one physiological reason why pleasant dreams can leave the waking person feeling genuinely lifted, not just emotionally, but with a slight neurochemical residue of pleasure carried across the boundary of sleep. Animals dream too. Studies on rats, birds, and various mammals have found clear evidence of REM sleep and neurological activity during sleep that parallels the patterns seen in human dreaming. Rats who learn a maze during the day show the same hippocampal firing sequences during sleep that night, as though replaying the maze in miniature. The evolutionary conservation of sleep and dreaming across species suggests that whatever dreams are doing for the brain, it is something ancient and important, not a peculiarity of the human mind, but a shared inheritance of the vertebrate line. Children dream frequently and vividly, but their dreams are initially simpler than adult dreams. Before the age of around 7 or 8, most children's dreams are static scenes rather than narratives, images without story. The capacity for narrative dreaming develops in parallel with the child's developing theory of mind, the ability to understand that other people have inner lives different from their own. The rich, story-driven dreamscapes of the adult overthinker are built on decades of expanding perspective-taking, each year adding more characters to the internal theater. Sleep deprivation disrupts the default mode network's normal architecture. Studies tracking overthinkers under conditions of inadequate sleep find that the default mode network loses some of its organizational coherence. Its internal connections become less synchronized. and its communication with other networks degrades. For the overthinker, who relies on the default mode network to process experience and generate meaning, sleep deprivation is not just physical exhaustion. It is a disruption of the most fundamental cognitive tool they have. The anticipation of sleep, the act of preparing for rest, settling into a regular bedtime routine, allowing the mind to begin winding down, itself has neurological effects. Studies tracking cortisol and melatonin levels in the hour before sleep find that predictable sleep preparation routines accelerate the hormonal transitions needed for sleep onset. For the overthinker, whose mind is often running fastest at bedtime, creating a consistent pre-sleep ritual offers a way to use behavioral cues to begin the neurological transition before lying down. Journaling before sleep, writing down worries and concerns rather than mentally circling them, has been shown in controlled studies to reduce sleep onset latency in people with high levels of cognitive arousal. The act of externalizing thoughts appears to give the brain permission to release them from active holding. A 2018 study in the Journal of Experimental Psychology found that writing a to-do list before bed, specifically, reduced the time it took to fall asleep. Possibly because the brain registered the thoughts as adequately processed once they were written down. The body's temperature plays a quiet role in sleep induction. Core body temperature naturally begins to fall in the hours before habitual sleep time, and this drop helps signal the brain to begin its transition toward rest. A warm bath or shower 30 to 60 minutes before bed accelerates this temperature drop after the body emerges from warmth, a physiological nudge towards sleep that requires no mental effort at all. For the overthinker looking for a way into rest that bypasses the thinking mind, the body's thermal rhythm offers a gentle backdoor. The transition from light sleep into deep slow-wave sleep is marked by the appearance of delta waves, large, slow oscillations at 1 to 4 cycles per second. During slow-wave sleep, the brain begins its most intensive memory consolidation work, and the body releases the majority of its nightly growth hormone. This is the most restorative phase of sleep for the body's physical tissues. Muscles, immune cells, cellular repair mechanisms all depend on it. For the overthinker, whose body often carries tension accumulated from stress and anxiety, adequate slow-wave sleep is a form of biological repair. Breathing patterns during sleep are significantly influenced by emotional state. Slow, regular breathing supports deeper sleep stages. Anxiety-related breathing, slightly more rapid, slightly more shallow, keeps the nervous system in a state of mild activation that tends to suppress deep, slow-wave sleep. Gentle breathing practices before sleep, including extended exhalation techniques, activate the parasympathetic nervous system and help initiate the autonomic shift toward rest. The breath, accessible and always present, is the overthinker's most readily available tool for beginning the descent. Music with tempos around 60 beats per minute has been associated with reduced physiological stress markers and improved sleep onset in multiple studies. This tempo corresponds roughly to the resting heart rate, and listening to it may entrain, gently synchronize the body's cardiovascular and respiratory rhythms toward rest. Ambient music designed for sleep takes advantage of this principle, creating a sonic environment that nudges the nervous system toward the pace of rest, without requiring any conscious effort from the listener. Dreams about teeth falling out, being unprepared for an exam, or arriving somewhere naked are among the most universally reported dream types across cultures and centuries. These classic anxiety dreams appear in ancient texts as readily as in modern sleep journals. The universality of these specific scenarios suggests they tap into deeply conserved emotional themes: vulnerability, unpreparedness, exposure, that have mattered to humans in every era. The overthinker having these dreams is not unusual. They are participating in one of the most ancient shared experiences of the species. Gratitude practices before sleep have been shown to shift the emotional quality of pre-sleep cognition in ways that improve sleep onset and dream tone. Studies on gratitude and sleep find that people who spend a few minutes identifying experiences they are genuinely grateful for before bed show lower pre-sleep cognitive arousal and slightly less negative dream content. The mechanism may involve the positive activation of the default mode network, giving it warm, affirming material to process rather than leaving it to cycle through whatever is unresolved. The felt sense of understanding, the experience of suddenly seeing how things fit together, is disproportionately reported in the morning, shortly after waking. This is consistent with the memory abstraction function of REM sleep. The sleeping brain has been building connections and generalizing patterns across the night, and the integration becomes conscious as the person emerges from sleep. The overthinker, who wakes with a new perspective on something they were struggling with the night before, has experienced this process firsthand. It is not random. It is the night working. Research on the emotional after effects of dreaming has found that the emotional tone of remembered dreams predicts mood in the early waking hours. Positive dreams produce a mild elevation in morning mood. Distressing dreams produce a mild dampening. For the overthinker who monitors their own emotional states carefully, this connection means that the quality of the night's dreams is not just a record of the sleeping mind. It is one of the inputs into the day's emotional starting point. Caring for sleep quality is, in this sense, caring for the emotional foundation of each new morning. The default mode network has been linked to what researchers call perspective taking, the capacity to imagine the world from another person's point of view. This is one of the cognitive functions most associated with empathy, moral reasoning, and narrative understanding. Overthinkers, who engage in perspective taking almost compulsively, imagining how others see them, constructing the inner experience of people they care about, are exercising one of the most socially valuable capacities the brain possesses. The same neural machinery that generates their anxiety also generates their care for others. Dream sharing, the act of narrating a dream to another person, appears to have psychological benefits independent of any formal interpretation. Simply articulating the dream experience gives it a social reality, integrating it into waking narrative, and the response of the listener helps determine how the dream is held. In cultures where dream sharing is a common morning practice, researchers have noted stronger social bonds and greater reported sense of being known by others. The overthinker who shares their vivid inner life, including their dream life, with trusted, others may be participating in one of the mind's most ancient social rituals. The sense of being tired, but unable to sleep. The experience that many overthinkers know as the cruelest paradox of insomnia reflects a genuine neurological conflict, the homeostatic sleep drive, which builds throughout the day and genuinely wants to produce sleep. is being counteracted by the arousal system's activation. The body is ready. The mind is not. The most effective approach to this conflict is not to fight it or to demand sleep, but to hold the tension gently, allowing the body's deeper wisdom to gradually win the argument without the mind adding its own pressure to the standoff. The phenomenon of sleep creativity, the observation that insights and creative connections often come during or just after sleep, has been documented across the history of science, art, and philosophy. Paul McCartney reported that the melody of yesterday came to him in a dream. The structure of the benzene ring is said to have been inspired by a snake eating its tail dream. Elias Howe is credited with solving a mechanical puzzle in a needle design by way of a dream. These accounts reflect a genuine neurological phenomenon, REM. Sleep's loosening of associative constraints produces connections that the disciplined waking mind would not generate. The overthinker's busy dream factory is the same one that, on the right night, might produce something unforgettable. Recent work in neuroscience has begun to explore the relationship between dreaming and future-directed thinking. Specifically, the brain's capacity to mentally simulate possible futures. The same neural circuits involved in episodic memory and dreaming appear to support the simulation of imagined futures. The hippocampus, the prefrontal cortex, the default mode network for the overthinker who lives substantially in imagined futures, anticipating, rehearsing, worrying about what may come. The dream state may be performing a related but more unbounded version of this simulation, freed from the constraints of plausibility that the waking mind applies. The night has its own intelligence. While the waking mind argues and negotiates and demands resolution, the sleeping brain proceeds without debate, encoding, connecting, clearing, renewing. The overthinker, who goes to bed with a problem and wakes with a new perspective, has not been visited by something mysterious. They have experienced what the brain was always designed to do when given the conditions for deep rest. The night is not an interruption of the thinking life. It is the thinking life's most important collaborator. Sleep is the only known state in which the human brain can perform all of its maintenance and consolidation functions simultaneously: memory consolidation, emotional processing, toxin clearance, cellular repair, neural pruning, and creative recombination all occur during different phases of the sleep cycle. Wakefulness, for all its productivity, cannot replicate this. The overthinker who lies down and releases the day is not stopping their mental work. They are handing it to the part of the mind best equipped to complete it. The vivid dream life of the overthinker is not a symptom of a mind that cannot rest. It is evidence of a mind that, even in sleep, is fully alive. The richness of the dream world reflects the richness of the inner world that feeds it. Every strange scenario, every emotionally textured night, every morning dream fragment that carries the weight of something real. These are the signatures of a mind that takes the world seriously, feels its full dimensions, and continues, even in the dark, to make meaning from it. That is not a burden. It is a form of aliveness that most people never fully know. Research tracking dream content over a lifetime finds that the themes and settings of dreams shift with age. Young adults dream more often of threat and pursuit. Middle-aged adults dream more of relationships and work. Older adults dream more of the distant past. Childhood landscapes, long-lost friends. The particular quality of light in a place they once loved. This developmental arc suggests that the dreaming brain is not just processing the present, but maintaining the whole span of a life. Holding every season of experience in the sleeping mind's soft archive. The overthinker's dream life will continue to evolve, deepening and softening with each decade of experience added to its source material. Somewhere in the world right now, in countless time zones, across every climate and culture, an overthinker is lying in the dark, mind circling, body tired, searching for the doorway into rest. And what the science tells us is this: the searching itself is not the problem. The thinking is not the enemy of sleep. It is simply a mind that has not yet been given permission to trust the night. And tonight, you gave it that permission. You lay down. You listened. You let the facts of your extraordinary inner world wash over you. Not as problems to be solved, but as evidence of everything you are. And slowly, gently, your remarkable brain began to rest. You have traveled far tonight, through the default mode network and its endless interior monologue, through the neuroscience of REM sleep and the emotional processing that happens while the waking mind believes nothing is occurring, through 100 facts about a mind like yours, restless, creative, deeply feeling, perpetually searching for meaning, and what the science tells us about why it dreams the way it does. You are not the only one lying awake. You are not the only one whose thoughts run deeper than the hour requires. And you are not broken. Not even a little, but the mind that dreams most vividly is the mind that lives most fully. The science has said this tonight, in 100 different ways. Let your thoughts grow still now. Not by force, only by permission. Imagine them as leaves floating on slow water, drifting gently away from you without urgency, without needing to be caught. You are the water, not the leaves. Let your body grow heavy and warm. Let the night hold you. Let the dreaming mind take what it needs from all that you are. And trust, deeply, quietly, that while you sleep, something in you is continuing its work. You don't need to supervise it. You only need to rest. A thoughtful journey deserves to be shared. If you found a little more peace in understanding your mind tonight, a gentle like and subscribe helps other sleepless souls discover this peaceful space too. It only takes a moment, but it means the world to us. One quiet tap, one sleepy soul at a time. But there's no need to do anything now. Nothing at all. You've traveled far tonight, farther than most journeys take you. You can allow these thoughts of dreaming and the beautiful restless mind to fade now. Like the last image of a dream, already dissolving at dawn, leaving only the warm, soft, calm behind. Let your breathing deepen. Let your body feel heavier, as if the earth itself has reached up to hold you still. If sleep comes, let it carry you like a slow river at night, smoothly, inevitably, into a realm where time and weight no longer matter. If your eyes are still open, the next video is waiting, ready to continue the journey. But if they're closed, stay there. Stay in the darkness that feels safe and warm. Tomorrow, your extraordinary mind will still be there. The questions will still be waiting. But tonight belongs to stillness. Rest well, dear thinker, and remember, Your vivid dreams are not a symptom of a mind that cannot quiet. They are proof of a mind that has always known how to feel. Fall asleep to gentle science. Dream deeper with bedtime psychology. Rest. Listen and drift into sleep. Good night.